Hello there. We're going to initiate our physical experience of the earth element with a little bit of breathing. And I encourage you to elevate your seat as much as you need to in order to sit with a feeling of simplicity in your pelvis. We've done a little bit of orienting to the pelvic structure, but I invite you to tap in as much as you can to sensation over anatomical drawing. And if you would, take a seat with the sits bones propped up even a little bit with a blanket or a pillow, and allow your pubic bone or the front of your pelvis to almost fall forward so that there's just the gentlest arch in your lower back that doesn't create or require any muscular holding from the lower back. When you set your hands on your knees, you feel the knees gently sloping down from the hip sockets. And then as you start to settle into this feeling of being seated and stable, close your eyes and tune into now the subtlety of your structure, the sensations that maybe were more difficult to notice at first. Orient your attention to the possibility of sensation at the pelvic floor. And as you inhale, sense or imagine the pelvic floor, these hammock-like muscles descending. You can even imagine a person sitting in a hammock or yourself sitting in this hammock, and it just sort of sinks. And then as you exhale, it's like you got out of the hammock. It lifts. Inhale, there's a really gentle sinking, and if you want, you can orient visually to my hands. Exhale, it lifts. Inhale, exhale. And stay really focused on the sensation, even if it's really minimal or it occurs intermittently throughout the breath practice. Keep steering your focus toward the felt experience of the breath moving at the pelvic floor, of the pelvic floor pumping gently. And it is part of our orientation here to notice not so much sensitivity or less movement or asymmetrical movement. That's all part of it. We'll just stay with the breath for another minute or so. Give you some silence. Let it be simple. This is just our initial orientation to the root as a physical experience. We're going to tap in more specifically to the physical support structures in order to see how that impacts our subtle or energetic experience of root and earth in our being. So from here, we're going to standing, and I invite you to stand and make sure that you have a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, even a really firm water bottle, like if you have one of those metal water bottles, that'll work too. Just something firm, even like a what am I thinking of? A dowel rod. I don't know why you would have one of those hanging around, but maybe it's a broomstick. That seems something more reasonable to have laying around. So grab something round and firm and come to a standing position. So you don't have my face, but you've got my feet, which is what I want you to have now. And as you come to standing, look down at your feet and find parallel. Parallel means that there's almost like the number 11 in your feet, and there's something interesting to experiment with for yourself. Just to have the heel lined up with your middle toes. So if you line up your heel with your big toe, there's a little bit of an external rotation that happens. If you line up heel and pinky toe, it's a little bit of internal rotation. Both of those things have their value and their place, but for now, I want you to find parallel with heels in line with the middle two toes. And then just relax your arms, relax your posture, maybe even close your eyes again. And begin to come back to this breath where you orient your attention primarily to the possibility of the sensation of movement in your pelvic floor. And as you do that, notice what becomes clear to you about your stance, your posture, the way you make contact with earth in a literal sense. Do you slightly lean or tilt? Is your weight propelled forward? Does your weight sag back? Are you primarily on one side? And then without thinking too much about symmetry or appearance, definitely, just notice what needs to change for you to establish something more like evenness between right foot and left foot. A mirror image in the way you stand on each foot. And then we're going to take this round object, today I have a lacrosse ball, and place the lacrosse ball underneath the ball of your right foot. Slide it back a little bit so it's not under your toes. I don't want your toes to be bending, but just at the very top of your arch. The ball of your foot and your toes will be hanging off. Step the left foot back a few inches so you're in a little bit of a staggered stance. Keep all 10 toes pointing straight ahead. And then press forward with your right foot like you were pressing down on a gas pedal, and stop when you start to clench up in the body. It might not be very much weight at all. Relax your toes, relax your left knee, and keep the left foot weighted from heel to toes. I'm going to let my arms hang, and I'm going to bend my right knee a little bit more. That's going to create more sensation in the right foot. I can take more sensation without clenching or interrupting my breath cycle, which, don't forget, breath cycle is moving all the way down into the pelvic floor. And then a little bit of movement in the right foot, like you wanted to wave your foot side to side. And you can see my foot moving here. There is a little bit of movement happening in my knee and in my hip joint. That's okay, but there's also movement in my ankle, which is important and supports my knee and my hip. And then start to press your right foot forward until your heel lifts up off the floor. Now you've got the ball under the arch, proper arch of your foot. I'm going to roll my ball back so that I've got a little more evenness in my feet, my legs, my hips aren't so torqued. And then roll the ball forward and back along the length of your arch. Remember, you create the amount of pressure. So if you want to take some pressure off, bend your left knee more. Just kind of let your right leg hang here. Press down through the sole of your right foot to create more sensation. Just make sure you're not locking the opposite knee. You'll notice immediately what that does to the weight in your foot and your butt cheeks and your jaw and your breathing. So make these connections. What is happening as a result of creating extra sensation in the sole of the right foot, all the way up until your pelvic floor, between your shoulder blades, your tongue? And can you marry these 2 points of focus of having a subtle breath in the pelvic floor and doing this release work in the sole of your foot? I could spend all day doing this, so before we do that, let's just take a few more passes. I'm going to get a little fancy here and move the ball over towards my inner arch. Requires a little more balance, but it's real tender in there. And then pause. I'm going to pick up the ball so it doesn't go too far. Find parallel again. Heels in line with your middle 2 toes. And just take a few breaths, standing, sensing, breathing. Note your own experience of right foot, left foot, following the work. Try not to concretize anything for yourself, but observe and sense. And then we'll go to the other side. So now the ball goes under the left foot. Remember, it's not under the toes. It's just below the line of the ball of your foot, where the ball of your foot meets your arch. And now I've got to step my right foot back, otherwise my knee feels a little jammed. Press forward by bending your left knee, a mini lunge. Try to keep your right toes pointing straight ahead. Mine turned out. My right foot tends to turn out. And then if that's too much pressure or sensation, back off a bit. Lean more weight back onto your right leg. Ensure that you're not locking the knee, sinking into the heel, clenching your butt, etc. Follow the pathway of support from the sole of each foot all the way up into your shoulders and the base of your skull. And I think I've got a little too much distance, so I'm going to adjust. And then I invite you, if there's some receptivity in your breath, meaning you're not already breathing in a labored way, to move the left foot, knee, hip slightly side to side. So the ball is moving horizontally across that line of muscle where the arch becomes the ball of the foot. I'm relaxing my toes. I invite you to do the same. Sometimes we have to do that on purpose. And also take these final moments here attending to the possibility of movement at the pelvic floor. So if you're standing with the butt cheeks compressing, it's going to be much more difficult for the pelvic floor to be in support of your breath. It's a fear posture, isn't it? Tucking the butt. And now draw the ball back, roll it underneath, directly underneath the arch of your foot. Settle a little bit. Adjust the posture so you feel your right foot evenly weighted from heel to toes. Hips relatively balanced here, right to left. And then just roll your foot forward and back. Allowing the mind to observe, is this foot more tender? Does it hurt? Do you need to make more adjustments? But also staying more focused on the steady rhythm and pattern of breathing in and out. And once you get through this the first time and kind of take a little extra time and feel the pattern, the progression, you can do this on your own and it doesn't have to be for as long, right? I recommend doing this every day if you wear heels or if you stand a lot, if you recognize a high level of tension here or imbalance. Just, Take the next 2 weeks to do this every day for a minute on each foot. Do it while you're brushing your teeth. Do it while you're getting ready for bed. Maybe dig into the inside line of the arch for a breath or two. Oh, gosh. I think I'll take my own advice and do this every day for the next 2 weeks. All right, loves, please take the ball out from underneath your foot. Stand parallel. Soften the soles of your feet in a gesture of opening to the floor. And notice how when you allow your bones to be hugged by gravity down, the arches actually lift a bit. When you allow the shin bones, the thigh bones to be hugged down by gravity, there's some space in the knee joints, in the hip sockets. When you allow your pubic bone, your tail, to be hugged toward earth by gravity, suddenly there's an opening internally. I sense width and depth. Good. And then please come down onto your hands and your knees. And it might be nice to give yourself some cushion here. Today I'm not going to take any. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. And we're going to move up the backs of the legs, follow this line of connective tissue that starts at the soles of the feet and goes all the way up around the back of the head to third eye center. So we are enhancing conscious awareness by working on these lower limbs of the body. To do this work, let me turn so you can see a little bit better. You're going to be on hands and knees and then cross one of your shins over the back of the opposite calf. And it's low calf, right where the calf kind of becomes the Achilles. Just cross the bottom front of your shin over that patch of muscle. And then as you inhale, think cow pose. Let your belly and your ribs melt. Softly extend the spine. Try not to crank the head back, but more lengthen the front of your body. And then as you exhale, little lift of the ribs. No need to tighten your belly. Sit your hips back. Maybe you sink all the way back. If it's too much sensation and you clench or hold your breath, stop. Inhale brings you forward. We'll gently massage this for a few rounds of breath. The breath is still, oriented to the pelvic floor. Inhale, there's a softening, a widening. Exhale, a gentle drawing in and lifting up. This time, sit back. As an option, walk your hands back. That will certainly make it more intense. More of my weight is going back. So I have bone pressing on muscle. If you feel bone pressing on bone, stay forward. Maybe you even lift your bottom up a little bit. I'm going to stay here for 5 breaths. If that's too much for you, certainly come up. And really feeling the pelvic floor descend here on the inhale. Shit gets real, right? Like, oh, I'm acknowledging here I am. My weight drops into it and it's really intense. I'm going to lean forward a little bit. Exhale, lengthen your spine from the support of pelvic floor lifting up. Imagine it pressing your head gently forward or skyward if you're vertical. Again, if it's too long for you to be here, if you start to feel yourself in fight or flight, or even freeze, shutting down, dissociating, gritting your teeth, come out. You're orienting not only to your physical reality, but your autonomy over your physical reality. Oh, Lord. I'm going to come out. Uncross whichever leg was getting smushed, straighten it behind you, tuck your toes on the floor. Just pump your body forward and back a couple of times. Roll over the toes, release it. I'm gonna let my hip hang down. Sometimes I get a little pop in my back, it feels good. And then we'll go to the other side. So the leg that was just being smashed is now doing the smashing. Cross the bottom shin over the bottom calf of the other leg. Inhale, lengthen. Allow the pelvic floor to soften and widen, and then as you exhale, draw gently in and up at pelvic floor. Keep your spine long and sit back as much as you can without clenching, tightening, gripping. Inhale. Exhale, come back. Inhale. Exhale back. Inhale. Exhale back. Inhale. And now we're going to settle into it. Exhale back. Start slowly. Keep your hands way out in front of you. Give yourself 1 or 2 rounds of good breath. And then walk your hands back. So I want to say something. This will become more relevant in later modules. But if you don't already know this, one of your calf muscles, the kind of big bulbous one that we prioritize, it's called the gastrocnemius. Gastro, same root as gastrointestinal tract. So it refers to your digestion. This can be really stimulating for digestion if you are someone who already has a lot of fire. Pitta, for those of you who study Ayurveda, you don't need to spend much time smashing the calves. Even if you sense some tension here, just a really gentle massage with your fingers, an easy stretch, right, in an upright lunge would be plenty. This can be a little too stimulating. So I'm feeling that. I think it also has to do with the fact that I'm pregnant. I don't need more activity down there. So I'm going to come out. You can stay for another few rounds of breath if you wish, or maybe if you're constipated, it could be helpful. Come forward when you're ready. Uncross. Slide the smashed leg straight with toes tucked against the floor and pump your body forward and back a few times. And bring your knee down, hands up on your hips so you're upright one at a time. Step your feet to the floor. Find parallel. Tune into your breath. Good. Next phase is a little more movement. So patience as I reconfigure. My wires. Hold on, loves.